Well, hello again. This time we're going to do a little bit of cabinet work and a little bit of work on the Select-O-Matic mechanism. I want to kind of finish that mechanism up. I've only got a couple of things to do to it. We need to put in those plunger things, you know, those contact plungers, and a couple of wires I want to put back on. The black one and the white one, if you'll recall, that we took off earlier, right in the very beginning before we even removed the mechanism. Anyway, what I've done here, let me get something to point with. I can always, there we go. Left my pencil in the house, I think. Anyway, what I've done here is I've taken this is the molding that's going to have to go on here like so. All right, it gets nailed on. It was not glued, and I'm going to nail it back. But I didn't want to use the exact same holes that they had. That's not a good idea to do that. It doesn't hold anything because the hole is usually much larger. They use some very large nails too. I didn't think they needed them to be quite that big. So I went out and bought 1.5 inch finishing nails, and then I filled every hole and glued in toothpicks, all the holes on this one here also, and over here along that edge over there. So what we're going to do here is they've dried now overnight, so I'm going to cut them off, take my motor tool and kind of grind them down just a little bit, then sand them flush, and then drill new holes with a very small drill every so often. Then I'm going to put this back on here. That's already been sanded down smooth and everything. We're good to go. Then I'll nail it back on, and then once that's done, we'll go over and strip the other side, and then we'll go ahead and paint this entire thing. Can't wait. I thought I'd better cover this a little bit though before we move on. For those of you who have never used toothpicks to plug a nail hole or a screw hole, I just used the standard toothpick that's sharp on each end. The whole box lasts you forever. And you take a pair of dikes, small dikes like so, and just cut the ends off. And then I usually cut it right down the middle, okay? And then I'll put a glob of glue out here on the wood, and then I'll take each half and kind of spin it around in the glue, get a good glob on the end, then just stick it down in the hole as far as I can by hand, then take a hammer and tap it on down. I don't mean hammer it, just tap it, bang, 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 bang. You'll feel it bottom out, okay? Then when it comes time to get rid of them, you take your dikes again, you just cut it off flush like so. That's all you got to do, cut it off as close as you can. And then if it's rough wood like it is right here, I'll just go ahead and take my motor tool and grind it down a little bit until she's fairly flush, like so, nice and flush. Now if this was wood that was a little more decorative or something like that, I would do it by hand, okay? You don't want to gouge into the wood, but this is all rough plywood type stuff. It'll work great. So that's how that's done. Well, as you can see, there's been quite a bit of repair work done here. I took a big old piece of veneer I had and cut all that nasty old stuff out and laid that in. Turned out to be about the same thickness as this. I had to do a little bit of sanding. Had a very, very tiny edge there, and I wanted to get that off. That was a hand sand there. Then I laid in some of that veneer iron-on edging here. Cut that old nasty piece out. By the way, this was iron-on also. And then I had a big old piece of parquet flooring that I kept around from when we did the flooring in our house. By the way, that parquet flooring really sucks. Don't even waste your money. I'm going to have to take it all up again one of these days and get rid of it. But that's what wifey wanted, so I went with it. Anyway, we're going to cut this off here with the moto tool, or the rotary Black & Decker is what it's really called. I have a saw blade, circular saw blade here. We're just going to cut that baby right across there like that. Then we're going to cut it down here like this best we can. Then we're going to take the sanding drum on the rotary tool and make it look halfway decent. Whole lot better than what it did when we started. Let me get all that done. Just to show you what we're going to do here, this molding will go on first. I've decided to go ahead and just finish up this one side and paint it. Then I'll do this later on my own off camera. We've got the molding clamped on with these clamps on both ends. And then we're going to take this really tiny drill in the drill bit. I'm going to put one right here in the center, best I can, find the center. Then we're not going to drill all the way through. We'll drill down about maybe 3/4 of the way, half to 3/4 of the way through the molding. Stick the nail down in there and just drive it on in. and then countersink it with a punch. Let me see if I got that punch in my pocket. I thought I did, but I probably left it somewhere and don't even remember what I did with it. Nope, here it is. Got lucky. Alright, I'm just going to countersink it with this punch here. Just take that baby right there and tap it on the head of the nail and countersink it down about, oh, maybe a little more than 1/16 of an inch. Not very far. Well, here's my wood filler. I'm going to use this Elmer's this time. It takes a couple hours before you can paint it with water-based paint, which is what I'll be using. But I can't find my can of really good wood filler that I use on my cabinets, on my radio cabinets. I don't know what happened to it. You know, when you move, all kinds of crap. A lot of things happen that's good. You find things you didn't know you had. And then other things you lose completely. So it's all the wife's fault. It's the wifey. She did it. So all I'm going to do is take some of this wood filler, just throw it in each of the holes. Not a big deal. You don't use a ton of it, you know. It's made by Elmer's, so you know it's got to be good. It's just got to be good. And that's all we're going to do, all the way down. And as soon as it dries, I'll come back. I'll smush it down in the hole, and as soon as it dries, I'll come back. Matter of fact, we got kind of a little hole right here, too. I might just go ahead and fill that right there. We'll come back and then we'll paint this whole thing here. Then we'll get on that mechanism. After I sanded down all of the filler, I went ahead and you know, really did a good sanding job on it, best I could by hand. And I took some of this Minwax pre-stain treatment, which is nothing but a sealer. It says pre-stain, but you can, you know, you put it on the wood, it'll dry, and you can paint over it. The wood will have a nice seal to it. So right now, I'm going to wait about, oh, I don't know, 30 minutes or so, and then I'm going to wipe it down. And then we're just going to let it dry overnight, and tomorrow, give it a paint job. Well, it's the next morning, and all of our sealer is really dried up really nice. So now we'll go, I was going to go ahead and put a primer on it, but I don't think I'm going to need it with the sealer. And we'll go ahead and put this on. We'll soon find out, won't we? It's not a big deal either way. I'll go ahead and paint this entire thing with a light coat first. Then I'll come back and hit it with a second coat. I don't want it dripping everywhere. Just go ahead and... This is a water-based satin black is what it's called. So let me go ahead and finish the whole thing up on this one side, and I'll be back. Well, that's the first coat on. Very light coat, just enough to cover it. And I will put the second coat on now. And I'll spend all next week stripping that one over there, setting it up the same way we did this, and painting it. And I'll spend some time fixing this edge right here. This has got to be done the same way we did the other one. This one's is not quite as bad as the other side, but it's bad enough. And we will take, now right here you'll notice we have some exposed wood that's a little bit deep. What I'll do is I'll take a rag, you know, I have an old washcloth, I'll dip it in the paint, and then we'll just rub it back and forth on there until it covers it all. We'll do that all the way down wherever there's a bare spot. And there's another one right here. We'll rub it in there all the way down. We'll take care of all of that. Alright, as soon as I'm done with that, let me show you what we're going to do next. We are going to put these contact plungers, these 4, in there. So stand by for that. That'll be in a couple of seconds after I get back to finish up the painting here. Alright, the second coat is drying, so let's get over here. We need to, I'll need to tip this thing this way so it's flat. This part right here is against the towel. But before we do, I think what we'll do is do a little more cleaning on these wires. These wires are really kind of nasty looking. Take some alcohol here and my brush. Let me work on that for a while and then we'll get it flipped over. The mechanics of this thing is going to be the most difficult thing. You know, again, old Seeburg did a pretty good job on this. The front wire is orange right here. And then the next 2 plungers, let me get around here where you can see it. Very kind of cool. Look at those next 2 plungers. The one on the top is blue, and the one on the bottom is blue. We're talking, this plunger right here is blue, and the plunger down at the bottom down here is blue. And they both connect to the same terminal, so it doesn't matter which one goes where. Pretty cool, huh? Blue. So we've got orange. Let me zoom in here a little better. There, that's a lot better. We've got an orange in the front. This would be the front edge. We've got an orange. We've got a blue, and then all the way in the back we've got another blue, but it's red and blue, okay? This goes on the back plunger right here. That'll be coming through that hole. Pretty slick, huh? All I gotta do is change them out one at a time, but the problem, I've got everything cleaned up. Now Brendan wanted me to change these wires. Unfortunately, I don't have wires that thin, and they don't, you know, these contacts, you know, they don't plunge way in and way out. They just barely bump as it goes over, so there's not a whole lot of flexibility required on those things. As a matter of fact, the wires are solid. So let's see what I can do. Let's see if I can get that thing looking halfway decent without losing everything or busting everything or losing track. One more thing, you know, I could have, this thing has been removed before. The screws right here, there's a screw here and one just like it on the bottom down here. This thing has been taken out before. Look at the screw head on that thing. It's really worn out, so they may have changed plungers before. You can go ahead and remove the screws and dangle the entire black mechanism down on the wires. I don't think I like that idea. I'd have to be fighting with it dangling down there. I think it's better to just do it with it sitting mounted and not disturbing those screws. We'll see. Well, the orange wire has been removed and the contact plunger removed. And you can see here that the wire was actually just soldered to the bottom of it. Well, the new ones, they have a hole for the wire to go through. I like that idea a whole lot better. So what I'm going to have to do is, you can see how ragged that is. That is really bad. That there, we got to do something about that. I'm going to go ahead and lop that off, restrip the wire, and do a good job on this best I can anyway. Well, I've been forced to make another command decision. You'll see the rust on the spring and the washer that came out with this old contact plunger. That rust is going to have to be removed. I'm not going to put rusty stuff back in those holes. So we already know where all the wires go. You know, we've got orange and then a couple of blues, and then we've got our blue and our red back here. I'm just going to go ahead and unsolder everything, strip the wires back, remove all the plungers at once, get all the springs out, all the washers out, and let them soak for a while in navel jelly and get those things cleaned up a little better. Alright, all we're going to do is take the old wires, the springs, and we're going to stick it right down in a cap full of navel jelly, just like I do when I derust screws and things like that. We'll put all the washers in. By the way, a good pair of tweezers like this always comes in handy. I've said that many times in my radio restorations. If you don't have a pair of tweezers that look like that, you're missing the boat. Get one. It's perfect, indispensable, I think. Alright, we're just going to go ahead and sink all this stuff right down in there. Let it set for about an hour or so. That's all it's going to probably take, maybe 2. And then we move on to next problem. These little blue wires broke right off. They are just so bad off. So we're going to have to wind up changing those anyway, and I have decided we'll just get rid of those. We're going to have to go with a thicker wire. 22 gauge is all I've got. It'll work. And the question is now, I've stripped the end here. Will it fit through the hole on the contact plunger so it can be soldered? Let's find out. Let us find out. Looks like yes, it'll go. No problem at all. Look at there. Works perfectly. Yep, go right through there. We can go ahead and solder it and then nip it off. This will be nice and flexible. It's not anything stiff and all that. This is stranded wire. And like I said, those little plungers, they only go just a tiny little bit up and down over those bumps on that Tarmat, what do they call it? Tarmat selectors, memory selector unit or something like that. Those little bumps. For those of you who've been following this series, you know what I'm talking about. So anyway, this is going to be my next chore, but first I'm going to have to get all that old solder off that part right there. You have to use a solder extractor and get all that nasty stuff off. That's where those blue wires came from. Well, everything has been derusted. They turned a little black, but that's okay. I can live with that as long as there's no rust on there and springs look really good. Now, I found out while this thing was derusting, I decided I'd try these contact plungers and put them through the holes on these things right here to make sure they were going to fit before I tried to, put it back together. And they did not fit. I had to take some 800 grit black sandpaper, silicon carbide, and sand them down a little bit. Just put the sandpaper around them and spin them back and forth until they fit real good. They fit pretty good now. No problem at all. They just go right in there. But they wouldn't do that before. I had to do it to one end on another one. This one here on the opposite end was pretty tight. The rest are okay. Let's get this thing back together so we can solder things up. Well, they're all back in. I'll tell you what, putting those things back in was a whole lot different ball game than getting them out. Getting them out was easy. All right, but we do have a problem. First, I'm going to go ahead and put some heat shrink around this black wire here. I don't like that at all. It's really ragged. I don't have any small heat shrink, but I have enough that'll cover that. It's a little bit larger. Here's the problem. This thin wire right here, this orange wire that's attached to this one pin right here, it just goes in real easy, in and out. Same thing with this red and blue one over here connected to this pin. Okay? These two that I replaced are thicker wire and they don't move as easily. This one here, matter of fact, wants to stay out a little bit. I've got to come up with some thinner blue wire. That's all there is to it. I can't use thick. Well, live and learn. I went ahead and removed those two blue wires, and you'll see that the pins move. Where are they at here? Those pins move really nice now. That's the way they're supposed to be moving. Wires are just too stiff. So I went ahead and also disconnected this black wire from here and slid a piece of heat shrink down on it because it was pretty ratty, the insulation was. I can't really solder it back until I get the two wires, replacement wires, on these two plungers. And that's going to be a while yet. I'm not exactly certain what I'm going to do. I may take an old gator wire. It won't be blue. It'll probably be green, and just use it as the two wires for this. I don't know. Or a yellow. I got plenty of yellow gator wires. Just use yellow. Guess it really won't make any difference. But something's got to be done. We can't use those big old thick wires. Alright, I just completed doing the final thing I want to do for this video. I resoldered the white wire onto here. You'll remember that white wire came off. It goes to a horizontal piece in the back. I'm not exactly remember what it was, but it's all on video. It won't be a problem figuring it out. And of course the black wire, which was soldered down to right there. So the black wire is hooked up and the white wire is hooked back up. And that's it for now. We'll just let those things hang. That's where they're going to go. I think they go in this. Let me zero in on this. I think they go in that little hook right there, and that hook got bent down. I think they both went in there like that, and that hook got bent over, which would hold them in place. I don't know. The wires I had on there were a little bit thinner than these. But anyway, that's it for now, guys. Next time, I hope to have that. Hope to have some thin wire to hook up the rest of those contact plungers, and we can move on to something else. Until next time, this is John.